Okay, careful. Nicely. There we go. Nice in order. Yes, this is going to be the best wall mosaic ever. Come on, come on, come on. In you go. There we go. Absolute perfect. Hi everyone, this is another Broken Meeple review. Today, this one has been getting quite a lot of buzz lately, and I'm looking at Azul, Azuzu, whatever you want to call it really. To be honest, the name makes no difference. This is a pure, straight-up abstract game. It's supposedly that the king has asked you to build his wall mosaics and stuff, but this is basically a pure abstract game. Forget trying to read the pasted-on attempt that this game makes to give you a theme. What you are doing is you are collecting these really awesome looking bake-like tiles from various tiles in the middle of the table. Let's see if I can, well, probably can't show you them as well in my hand, but you'll be able to see pictures of them. And what you do is that you will collect them from these tiles in the middle of the table and you will put them on your board. Depending on whether you can fill up the various rows on your board will allow you to put these tiles onto your finished mosaic and score points. Effectively, the more you can connect in rows and columns, the more points you will score, and if you can get all of a particular colour type on your board, they will score. Put simply, it's very much a decision-making process where you got to think, right, what can I do that won't let my opponents get a lot? But also, am I preparing myself for the inevitable problems later on? Essentially what happens is you will have these factory tiles in the middle of the table and they will have a selection of these tiles on them. You then choose whether you want to either take all of one type from a particular tile or all of one type from the middle of the table. Every time you take tiles off a factory tile, then they go into the middle of the table and this piles up over time. However, if you're the first person to take from the middle of the table, you will go first next round, but you'll suffer a negative point in the current round before that happens. So it's kind of like, ooh, to get an advantage later, you have to take a little bit of a penalty to start with. But essentially, it will go in turn order as everybody is taking tiles from the various places in the table and filling up their board. However, you have restrictions. The rows that you have to place these tiles on only have so many spaces, and once you've started it with a particular tile type, you cannot then chop and change during the round or even when it's incomplete. On top of that, each row in your mosaic wall only has one of each type in each row. So if you've already filled it up, you can't then place them on your board at all in that particular row. So as the game goes on, you end up with more restrictions. And this basically just continues until all the tiles have been taken, you score up based on what your tiles are connecting to, and then you rinse repeat until somebody has completed a full row of their mosaic, and then you just score up any last minute bonuses. Highest point wins, of course.
Of course!
So, the idea with this is very straightforward. It is a simple to play, simple to learn, abstract game for up to 4 players. Most abstract games only go to 2 players these days, but it's a nice refreshing change to actually see this one do up to 4. Whether it's best with 4 though, it remains to be seen. I mean, it scales okay. You basically have more tiles in the middle, depending on player count. But other than that, you're pretty much just adding time to the game when you add the extra players. This works fantastically as a 2-player game, and I enjoyed my time as a 3-player. 4-player less so, because I just felt maybe the time length was going on a little bit too far. It depends if you get AP players, I'll admit, but certainly I was thinking, yeah, come on, we can wrap this up. It should be a short game. And the box, I believe, says, 30 to 45 minutes. So, I mean, we're talking about maybe an hour with 4 players, depending on how quick people are. And I know that's not a long time, but this is a very sort of simplistic, abstract game. But that doesn't mean it's an autopilot game. One thing that's really cool about this is how your choices diminish over time. You start the game thinking, well, I got all the freedom of choice here. I can just put them on these rows, I'll put them on there. Yeah, they go onto the mosaic tile. This is pretty easy. All I got to do is do this every round. Until you start finishing up your mosaic, and then suddenly your choices get more limited. Because, as I said, once they're already on the mosaic, you cannot then use that same type in that row again. So suddenly you've just limited what you can do in the future. And slowly but surely that mosaic will fill up and your restrictions will get more and more, and you'll suddenly be like, okay, how do I plan this? And it's important to plan ahead, because anything that you can't place goes effectively dropped on the floor, which does lead to a few humorous comments about, really incompetent mosaic builders or something, literally like trying to put up tiles and just everything smashing on the floor. But every time they smash on the floor, you put them on this row, and cumulatively they score you negative points. So you want to do that as little as possible. And there's a good little bit of a take that in this game, where if you're looking at an opponent's board and you see that say there's only 3 types in the middle of the table left, and you're looking at their board, it's like 2 of those types they can't use, but I could use that one. All right, I'm going to take this type, and then your opponent is stuffed because they're going to take a type and it's all going to fall on the floor, score negative points. There's a lot of opportunities to do that, and certainly you're going to have to do that if you want to succeed in this game, because it's very much, as well as getting points yourself, you need to deny your opponents as well. It's very much a mixed bag. But it does lead to some really cool, tense decision making as you suddenly start having so few choices left that everything is like, oh god, but if I take that, I can't then do this later. I need to leave room between rounds, because the tiles don't go away on your rows if you haven't filled them all up. So you might accidentally be blocking yourself in the next round if you don't fill it up. And obviously it's harder to fill up a row of 5 than it is to fill up the row of 1, for example. But I've enjoyed my time with this. There's not much else I can say about it. The rulebook is crystal clear, pictorial examples, pure and simple abstract game. Caters for 4 players well. I mean, just because I say it goes on a bit long with 4 players doesn't mean it's like, I'll never play it with 4. I'll play it with 4, just avoid the AP players. But 3 players work just fine. 2, fantastic. This definitely shines. Best at 2, I think. And I don't often say that. I mean, normally a 3 player is the sweet spot for everything, but 2 player works brilliantly with this, because there's only so many tiles and you only have to focus on your board and one opponent. It becomes a lot easier to stitch each other up at the best of times. Scores tend to fluctuate a little bit. I mean, I've seen some tight finishes, but typically you'll see a bit of a spread. You might even be able to notice that there is a slight runaway leader problem at times. I mean, a lot of the games I've played, if someone started off well, chances are they're going to continue to do well, even if they have maybe blocked off a few of their routes. And then there have been occasional tight finishes, but for the most part, you tend to know who's going to win by the time it's about to wrap up. But it's not like you're going to be stuck there for ages knowing that, oh, well, I've lost, there's no chance. By the time you've realised this, the game's about to wrap up in a round or 2, so it's pretty quick to finish. And as I said, you can get this done in between 30 to 60 minutes easily, regardless of what your player count is. So this makes for a good abstract filler while you're waiting for something a bit more meaty and a bit more robust, shall we say. It's a decent game, but component-wise and art-wise, now, a lot of people will say that this is really beautiful, it's so lovely. Well, this is going to be down to subjective tastes. I think the component quality is sound. I mean, you get these great boards, well, you've seen the pictures already, but you get a shiny bag, proper bag with the logo on it, full of these amazing bait-like tiles. I love bait-like. There is just something about these things. They just sound so satisfying in your hand. There's lots of them, but as much as the component quality is sound, I find that the art choices they've used for it could have been a little bit better. Maybe it's thematic to what was in the past, I don't know, but put it this way, you have got 3 of these tiles that show a pattern. So you've got a little flowery pattern, you've got a sort of a different pattern on this one, and you've got a more crisscrossy pattern on this one. So it's like, cool, they look nice to each other. And then you got these. This is literally plain blue and plain red. No detail whatsoever. It looks cheap when you compare it to the others. And when you've got everything laid out on your board, it's colourful. It's certainly bright and striking on the table. And I'm not going to say it looks horrible, but I think beautiful is possibly taking it a step too far for me. But like I say, it's subjective what you think of in terms of art and looks. People will, let's take an example, Inish Inish gets a lot of backlash on the art. I think, the art's not my style in Inish, like the cover and the cards, but I'm not going to deny it's good. It's a decent set of artwork. But some people rag on Inish for its choice of artwork, so it's all the eye of the beholder. But the game itself has been solid. It is a filler, abstract game at heart, plays quick, easy to learn, more trickier to master, and like I say, everyone I've shown it to has generally enjoyed it. It's not something that's burnt their brain out, but they've enjoyed how the decision making becomes more and more tense as you approach the end. And it's great that you've got to decide, do I try and finish up these rows now? Can I afford to leave them till next round? Should I go first next round, even if I've got to take the penalty for it? Is there a way that I can goad the opponents into choosing tiles I don't need so that I'm left with even more tiles to take? Because it's like they don't want those tiles in the middle, so if they fill up the middle with the ones I do need, great, I can have more. There's a lot of cool, interesting choices for what is a 45-minute filler abstract game. So it is pretty solid. My only fear is that I'm not sure it's going to have enough legs. Because I do like playing this, but this isn't something I feel like I want to pull out all the time or play multiple times in a row. I feel like I've played one game and it's like, okay, I'm good, leave it, and then another time come back and grab it. So maybe over time it might start waning a little thin. I fear that maybe the replayability issue is a little bit questionable. It will certainly last you a good amount of plays, but I'm not convinced it's going to be one you're going to keep in your collection forever and ever and ever. And it does lend itself to alright, I've got the idea of the tactical and strategic play, but then it's not like you've got, let's think of other examples, like Yinch, for example, behind me. I'll put up a picture, it's easier. But something like Yinch is incredibly hard to master that one. Yeah, it's only for 2 players, but you could play that multiple times and still be like, I still haven't figured out this game. With Azul, you kind of have figured it out after a few plays, but of course, the different players that you play it with will influence how that works, because obviously they're going to take, it's a mixture of strategy but also tactics as you decide which tiles you're going to take versus what the other players are doing as well. So, like I say, it is a solid game and I definitely can recommend it. So, personally, I think it's actually solid enough to get, for me personally, probably an 8. I do enjoy this one quite a bit. I just feel that maybe it's going to wane over time. We'll see. I think maybe artwork choice-wise, there could have been better, but it is striking and colourful, so I can't fault it too much for that. And I think for a lot of people who want a filler abstract game that caters for more than 2 players, that is important because there aren't that many abstracts that work well with more players. Santorini allowed up to 4 players, but most people will only play it with 2, so that's not the best example. But yeah, this is a solid one. Michael Kiesling has done a good job with this one. Plan B Games, recommend you pick it up. So that's it for me. I'll see you on the next review. Take care, and no matter how many tiles you bust on the floor, it's still only a game, even if your mosaic's going to look a bit iffy by the end of it. So take care, guys. See you soon.